Welcome back, everyone. Let's go to Lindenhurst, where we're joined right now by Carolyn Fortino, who's been making her way up and down the island today and seeing some images almost impossible to believe. Go ahead, Carolyn.
That's right, guys. We're actually joining you from Bayview Avenue in Lindenhurst. And where I'm standing right now used to be the back deck of a home. But as you can see, there is no longer a home behind me. And that's because during the height of Sandy, the wind was so strong and the water levels rose so high here that it completely blew this house off of its foundation. We're going to take a walk over here just to show you a better picture of what we're dealing with. During the height of the storm, we're standing only about 20 feet from the water's edge, but the water levels rose completely to cover this house. The entire first floor of the house was completely under the water, and now you can see all that the house is completely shifted, and all that's left are these cinder blocks, which is where the house used to rest. If you look inside the house, you see that the furniture is toppled over. Everything is completely waterlogged and soaked. There's debris from the ocean inside, and just everything is just completely destroyed. And that's pretty much the scene that you're seeing here in Lindenhurst. And just as you go from one house to another, it's just more and more destruction and devastation. This house actually did have a detached garage. It's no longer here, though. It floated completely down the street. It's now several houses away, and that's just, one example of what you have here in Lindenhurst. The people that live across the street, they have plywood, and they're hammering down their garage because their garage was taken away during the storm. Now they're becoming concerned with looters in the area, and it's just very devastating to see all up and down the street. We saw people just moving their belongings, trying to salvage whatever they could. And the most heartbreaking part is that they don't know when they're going to be able to get some rescue crews down here to help them. And, there's a few people that were helping from the town of Lindenhurst, but that's all they've seen. And really, they're just keeping their fingers crossed and hoping that it's only a matter of time before people will be able to come down here and help them rebuild their lives and get their homes back together. But that's the latest from Lindenhurst. I'm Carolyn Fortino. Back over to you guys in the studio.
Carolyn, you mentioned the worry about looting. Have you seen any evidence or heard any evidence of any actual looting taking place?
We actually did hear some looting going on in the area, and it's just because, this neighborhood is completely in the dark. There is no power. These houses are completely destroyed. People don't have their front doors anymore. So you'd imagine it'd be very easy for people to, to be looting if they wanted to. And homeowners are scared. They're really scared because all of their belongings are destroyed, and half of them are sitting on their front lawns. So they're just trying to do the best that they can in this difficult time to sort of, guard their homes and make sure that they can keep themselves as safe as they possibly can.
Carolyn, thank you very much for that report. Carolyn and videographer, the videographer Sean that she's been with, have been making their way through a lot of these Long Island communities, and you'll see things that don't belong in places. You have boats on front lawns, and they weren't the homeowners' boats. They came from the shore. You have houses sitting in the middle of roads here, and as we've seen, the challenge is so many acute needs are spread over such a wide area, and people forget this storm from the diameter from one point to the other was more than 1,000 miles here. And as a consequence, you can't just marshal all resources and go to one area. And with so many needs, varying from the security that you just heard from here, to marshaling just the basic needs, to establishing power, to establishing, we had a fire that we were talking about that literally burned in front of our eyes here, and 14 homes went up in flames, and a bridge was collapsed on one end, and there was the other access completely breached and impossible to go by. Firefighters couldn't even get to it, and we watched it literally burn, a gas line in Manhattan that went out right in front of our eyes, and we all remember what happened in Breezy Point. 4 houses turned into 80 houses that burned up in front of our eyes again, and the firefighters literally had to get out of the fire trucks when the wheel wells had water rising above them, and then they tried to go by boat to fight a fire. Miraculous, they did phenomenal rescues here, but still only minor injuries. But nonetheless, the whole Breezy Point section, or at least 80 homes within it now, just a distant memory. So it's those kind of scenes that play out. Now, we mentioned, we just showed you just a snapshot of one community in Long Island, but let's go through and show you some of the other imagery here from making our way up and down. And let's start actually in New York City. This, Andrew, one of those surreal images where you see in ground zero water flowing down here, covering up what was once the Battery Park Tunnel here. You see waterlogged cars there underneath. And in Brooklyn here, water waist deep here as people just trying to figure out where you go next. Cars stranded here as they try to go by, and literally people fishing furniture out of what were once streets but now resemble obviously rivers. And then you see in Queens, in the section right there of Breezing Point we just discussed, where you know, it looks like a bomb had gone off here. And in Long Beach, where we visited earlier, the seaside community now all but inaccessible everywhere. Boardwalk resembling toothpicks now, so much of it underwater. Oceanside, another seaside community here where the sand literally has engulfed homes, and forget about in the basements, up through the first floor and beyond. What were roadways, and we were covering this live, and this is a live chopper shot, literally are now complete rivers. And in Freeport, just look at these scenes of devastation from last night playing out. And if you were hoping that the water receded a great amount since then, not enough. On Fire Island, yet another of these seaside communities whose landscape will forever be changed by this. So much beach erosion that took place and so many homes all but destroyed. And then in Riverhead, you see the surge here playing out in front of us, and just the amount of not only surge here, but also the water that really engulfed the community. And then all the requisite video here of just where there were power lines and trees, they've come down, and you have the difficulty of dealing with all the floods, dealing with no power, and dealing with inaccessible roads because of all the obstructions that have come down through the gale force winds that in some cases were 60 all the way up to 95 miles an hour. So you put all those things together in a composite and you have a recipe for the most trying, forget about rescue and recovery, but basically rebuilding. But even before you get to the rebuilding stage, just basic triage care. If you think of an advanced military unit or military hospital here, they're doing triage care. That's what's happening right now. And I think Monday we covered here the storm when it came through, and people were just trying to wait it out. Yesterday the lights came up and people said, we made it. Today there was this realization, oh my gosh, what lies ahead? Where do we go? And tomorrow, it's my sense that people really need to see the cavalry. Not hear about it, but they really need to see the cavalry.
Well, and even beyond the people who are directly affected, even beyond the people whose homes have been destroyed, you have plenty of people who are still without power, people who have been cooped up, nerves starting to get frayed. You go to supermarkets that are low on supplies or having trouble filling up your tank or filling up your generator. And it's the kind of thing that weighs on people. So even people who are removed from the initial devastation, the ones who aren't directly impacted by some of those photos that we just saw, everybody's starting to get a little on edge. Everybody's starting to get a little irritable.
And I think it's only one person's opinion, but scenes like today help. But what people forget is, when I leave this station and I go, the amount of people that I'm shocked by who say to me, hey, what's going on? And I said, well, what do you mean what's going on? Well, what happened with the storm? And you realize 9 out of 10 people have no power. They can't see a TV set. They can't go online. They have no idea other than their immediate block or immediate area. They haven't been to work. The kids haven't gone to school. They hear anecdote snippets here or there. But when I say, you think your problem's in, I'll pick a community, Westchester? My gosh, you go out to Long Island. You go to Lower Manhattan. If you saw the river that was the Brooklyn, that was the Battery Tunnel, or what is the pit in Ground Zero right now. You describe what Hoboken looks like. You describe what the Jersey Shore was and now is. People look at you, mouth agog. I mean, you've went into this too. It's just, now I want to go to Long Beach. We talked to Jody Goldberg, who was there before, and our chief meteorologist, John Heyman's down there as well. And John, from a firsthand perspective, people see what's in front of them, and that's enough to worry about. But people don't have an idea, I think, the scope and the breadth of this. I mean, you've covered storms here before, but we're talking about something 1,000 miles in diameter was the storm, and we're talking about people affected, albeit of varying degrees, from Maine into Canada all the way down to South Carolina, and people under 2 feet of snow in West Virginia. But describe at least the scene in Long Island, and also describe the mood.
Yeah, certainly, Rich. Well, you nailed it with the size of the storm. That's what made this storm so unique. Typically a tropical system, you see those very strong winds extend out about 100 miles for the center. When you go out 1,000 miles with tropical storm and hurricane force winds, that amount of energy it exerts on the water goes up exponentially, and that's what poured all the water up against the coastline here in Long Beach. So in Long Beach, we're talking about the coastal surge. That's put 4 feet of sand on the roads from the east end of Pacific all the way here to the west end of Long Beach. It doesn't get any better anywhere. There's no running water, no power, so no way for people to get any communication out. And people are certainly getting frustrated because of that. And another unique perspective is I drove up to the North Shore last night. I have never seen Route 110 from Melville up to Huntington completely black. Not one business had power. And then finally when the sun came up this morning and I drove around, I realized it was massive down trees on the North Shore. So while on the South Shore and coastal communities you're dealing with this storm surge, well, you're not out of the woods away from the coast as you have all these down trees and power lines, and it's going to take weeks. LIPA has 1 million customers without powers, and now they're talking about weeks to get that power back, and still no running water in Long Beach. That's what's really got people aggravated. They can't even run the water in their house or use their sewage systems, and people are really starting to get irate.
And people don't realize the challenges if they think it's strictly relegated to Long Island or into Nassau or Suffolk County, wherever they are. They don't realize that the cavalry is stretched so far with so many needs, with so many impassable roads, John. They don't want to hear it. But that's going to be the biggest challenge here. We have complete, as far as I can remember, of a natural disaster. I've never seen a more coordinated effort at all levels of government, and all from FEMA to OEM, et cetera. They plan, they put resources, they put men and material in place. They can't get to enough places fast enough. We got crews coming from California and Texas right now. But you're right, people are going to be waiting there for 2 weeks. And, you know, we might as well be in the 1800s. I mean, you don't get electricity, you don't have running water here, and people are going to be in trouble for a while, aren't they?
Yeah, certainly. The coastlines have been reshaped forever. This was a historic all-time storm. We've never seen a tropical storm merge with a non-tropical storm and come in at that extreme east angle, have the extreme size, so the Jersey Shore, parts of the Jersey Shore underwater. A lot of Long Beach was underwater, and there's just no way to get the word out. I can't tell you how many people have come by and have asked us for information because they have no source to the radio, no source to television, and we tell them, yes, they're angry. They don't think the National Guard's here, but they are here in the middle of town, and they just don't know where to go to get the water and supplies that they are giving out, because they simply can't give them out on every street. They're trying a coordinated effort at City Hall, but a lot of people just don't know that. And another unique problem, that surge destroyed probably 90% of the cars here in Long Beach. I can't tell you how many were floating on top of each other, knocked 50, 100 yards back, blocks away. They were drifting down streets. So people are essentially without transportation, even though the water is receded. I mean, cars are just strewn everywhere here.
And the idea here that this is a quick cleanup, and that's what I was trying to impress upon people, because they saw today, John, in Manhattan, Andrew, also the advisory that, hey, tomorrow you're going to have limited subways. Buses are running in New York, and you know, and all of a sudden you're going to have power restored in a lot of places within 2 or 3 days. Most of New York, the 5 boroughs, is going to have power back here. I'm not suggesting for a minute that New York City is completely out of the woods, but there's major progress being made. But then you go to a lot of these shoreline communities in New Jersey and Long Island when you are, and the depth of the problem and the scope of it, I just don't think it's been communicated enough. You can't communicate. We're in the 21st century unless somebody's got a bullhorn going down the street or skywriting. Literally, they can't get the word out. Right, John?
Can't get the word out. People can't even flush their toilets, and that's another thing that's really getting them upset. No running water, no way to get water. And yeah, communication is a huge issue here. And like we talked about, I mean, this whole coast has been reshaped by this storm. Yep. And we're going to be seeing a lot more coming out of these areas as we move in the next couple of days. It's just very difficult to get the communication out. And how about the Midtown Tunnel? That was built 2 feet above a record tide surge that we had numerous years ago, and that got flooded out. So that gives you the idea that we were at least 2 feet above a record tide.
John, we got to wrap with you, but thank you so much. We'll be checking back a lot more. And Andrew, At this point, we thought we'd talk politics, but in this calendar season, but no, this is a story here for days, weeks, and months ahead, no matter what the calendar says. Andrew, thank you very much.
Rich, thank you. Our coverage continues on FiOS 1 News after a quick break. Stay with us.